Friday, August 1st. So those of you keeping up, August 1st, 2025, Brendan, we are
I'm keeping up.
Yeah, 28 days away from the start. Auburn at Baylor. The night before, Missouri plays a Thursday night game. That's kind of the tradition.
But well, the future's so bright, we got to wear shades today, my friend. It's got to wear shades. We've got Friday with Mr. LSU, Frank the Tank.
Yes, Frank the Tank. And Gary Stokan. Gary Stokan.
Well, Gary Stokan, I feel like we need to call him just like Mr. Atlanta, or we need to like how we give nicknames out here to Top Gun and all the we're gonna have to come up with a name.
He is Mr. Atlanta. What Gary did along when he and Mal Moore went up to South Bend years ago to the College Hall of Fame, got through, and Gary said Mal told Gary, "There's nothing in here about Coach Bryant." Gary. And that's what started, and Gary made it happen, moving the College Football Hall of Fame to Atlanta and the partnership with Chick-fil-A. Gary Stokan, the CEO of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, the Atlanta Kickoff Classic, which get to Atlanta, people. I don't care who's playing, just go. It's a great weekend of college football. Hey, take a picture with your QR code. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and subscribe. We're putting out stuff all of the time, and I'm wearing All About Bikes t-shirt. That's where I get my bikes. I bought a couple of mountain bikes. They are great. Tommy and the crew up there, Nick, the whole crew. I love All About Bikes in Memphis over on Black Road, right at Poplar, right behind the Chick-fil-A. Let's get started. Let's bring everybody in here right now. And on this first day of August, Gary, you can feel fall in the air because it was 101 yesterday in Memphis. The heat index of 116. It's a cool 85 today. My wife goes, "This isn't a sweater, but it's close." I'm like, "No, you don't need to go that far." But Gary, how you doing? And Frank, Brendan, everybody.
Well, the great thing is we promised 72 degrees in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So everybody will be nice and cool.
Hey, we all remember, and I listen to my friend Chuck Oliver's show every day when I'm doing something. He was at Auburn when I was there, and love that show and what he and him do. We're talking about the days, and we all remember in the Peach Bowl, inevitably, like the Liberty Bowl in Memphis. And I was actually there in 1996 at a game. I had on a T-shirt. By the end of the game, it was sleeting. I kid you not. You can ask if you know Harold Grader, he'll tell you I wasn't kidding, and Steve Earhart. But the Peach Bowl, similar weather, you all made a Lazarus-like transformation, and that made Atlanta, in my opinion, the college sports media capital of America / the world because of what you and the Atlanta Sports Authority do. You're a very humble man. I got to talk to you a lot at media days, but wow, 28 days from now, everybody is going to be descending on Atlanta because of y'all's hard work.
Well, we had a lot of things go our way. One was the Georgia Dome took away the weather, which was a problem, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
When we played in Bobby Dodd Stadium and then in Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. And then ESPN came on and televised our game on a regular basis. We were New Year's Eve in most cases and had delivered probably 3 of the top 5 non-BCS broadcasts in ESPN's history with some of the ACC, SEC matchups we had. Yeah. Then Chick-fil-A came on as the title sponsor. They've been the longest partner in college football history. As title of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And then the ACC and SEC matchup, which became such a big rivalry and continues today, really helped us. And then, when you put together Atlanta with 3 interstates that intersect in the middle of downtown where people can drive easily from all the ACC and SEC universities and towns. And we have in Atlanta, living in Atlanta, the number 1 or number 2 alumni bases of all the ACC and SEC schools, all those ingredients, plus great volunteers that enjoy putting on Southern hospitality to people, and the great corporate support like Chick-fil-A and Delta and Home Depot and Kia, Georgia Power. We've just got some great partners. And then we have the best staff in the bowl business. So you put all those things together, and those are all the ingredients in a recipe to make Atlanta the capital of college football.
Well, and I say this every time I'm down there, like at media days. I was going back in the kitchen, off the main stage of media rooms, and just telling the staff what a great job they did, how good the food they had, blackened or grilled redfish, Frank, every day for lunch. I mean, it was really good. But I said, y'all make such a great difference in people wanting to come to Atlanta. And my quote on Atlanta is, I've never seen a city so big that can treat you so well when they put on these big events. That hospitality, and I don't say things just to curry favor with anybody. It's that good, and they make you in a big event. We had 4 or 5 nights in a row of Beyonce. We had a WWE event, the Home Run Derby, and the Major League All-Star Game, and then we had SEC Media Days. What more can you ask for?
The rows were filled. I stayed up here in Big Canoe and watched it all on TV because it was a crazy time in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. Gary, I got to tell you, what you guys have done here, it's fantastic. I moved here to Atlanta in 1993. Rhonda and I have had our business going for 23 years here at Duffy Realty. And just to watch what the Sports Commission, what you guys have done, it's fantastic. And I agree with you. Getting the Georgia Dome was a huge step in 93. In fact, one of the most prescient investments I ever made was buying SEC championship tickets when I had that opportunity in 93, and I haven't given them up since, nor will I. But also getting the College Football Hall of Fame here was a huge move. Can you speak to what was behind the scenes on that to get that out of South Bend and to get it here? Because I think when that opened, I remember it was like an opening of the premiere of Gone with the Wind back in 1939. There hadn't been that big of an opening down Peachtree since then. But to see what it's done and the interactive exhibits that have been put on there are just fantastic. I'm actually I've gotten to know Buck Bellew very well over at 680 The Fan, and had been fortunate enough to know Herschel and a lot of the SEC players that are still here in the area. And every year it's just almost a pilgrimage to go down there, even though you've been there. Every year something seems to change, and really that's all y'all's direction. So if you could speak to that, I think that's just a fascinating coup that you guys got to get the College Hall of Fame down here.
Well, thanks for your kind words, Frank, and congratulations to you and Rhonda. What you've done in the business side in Atlanta has been remarkable for people. So good on you, and great job by you guys. You mentioned a few things in there. One was Herschel Walker, who I signed when I was with Adidas to an Adidas contract. And Buck Bellew's a good friend. Buck, on that team, Vince Dooley was getting paid by Nike. And it was interesting because Buck wore Pumas because of Joe Namath. And I got Herschel to wear Adidas, and Herschel got me a bunch of players on that Georgia team to wear Adidas. But that's another story for another time. But the Hall of Fame, it was interesting. When I went up, as Rob had mentioned earlier, with Mel Moore, through the College Football Hall of Fame in South Bend, they were doing about 60,000 people a year. And it was very antiquated. And I said, if we moved this to Atlanta, this would be tremendous with the passion for college football in Atlanta and the Southeast. And so that was about 2002, somewhere in there. And at the same time, someone in Atlanta had come up with the idea to have a NASCAR Hall of Fame. And they went to NASCAR and they told NASCAR about their idea. And NASCAR said, yeah, it's a great idea. And they bid out a NASCAR Hall of Fame to Daytona, Richmond, Charlotte, and Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want the College Football Hall of Fame people to use NASCAR against us and vice versa. So I pulled the College Football Hall of Fame off the table. In 2005, I think it was, NASCAR gave the Hall of Fame to Charlotte. And so I pulled out the College Football Hall of Fame again and had great support from Mayor Franklin and Governor Perdue and all the legislature. I became a lobbyist and start working the halls of our capital, which is
whatever you got to do.
That's another part of my book at some point. But I remember calling Governor Perdue, and I said, I'm going to make a pitch to the National Football Foundation, which owns the College Football Hall of Fame. We were just going to license and lease it. And I said, I'm flying to Dallas to make the presentation to the board. I'd love for you to go with me. And he said, Gary, he says, I only get so many days off. I'm going to South Georgia to hunt. And I said, Governor, this is the big one. We got to get this. And he said, okay, I'll go down with you. So he flew down and stayed in the Gaylord down there in Dallas. And we made the pitch the next day. And they voted 39-1 to move it to Atlanta. I think Jerry Jones, who was on their board, was the only vote that didn't vote for us.
Of course.
Because he wanted it in Dallas.
Yep.
But I don't know that for a fact. But so then we went about actually, all the process of finding a site and getting an architect. And it probably took 3 years off my life between trying to get a site, trying to get architecture done, raise money. It was a real challenge, and this was all happening, when we went to market after we got the thing in 2008 and 9, which was the worst, if you remember, the worst financial crisis this country's
Sure.
been in since maybe the Depression.
I agree.
And Governor Perdue, God bless him, gave us $20 million in his state budget to build that parking deck. We were able to get the green lot where the Hall of Fame sits now from the state, and then went about. And I remember I went to my board. I said, if we're going to lead this, we need to be the first money in. So I said, we need $5 million because the aquarium had just been built, and they were getting $5 million from their sponsors. So my board agreed, and the next visit I had was with Truett Cathy. And I remember going to Orlando where they were having their national meeting. And I went up to the penthouse in the hotel in Orlando, and Truett Cathy was there, and Bubba Cathy and Dan Cathy, his two sons, and his heart doctor, Truett's heart doctor. And they sat me next to the heart doctor. And I made the presentation. And after the presentation, Truett said, if this is good for Atlanta and we're headquartered in Atlanta, we're in. And I remember Bubba saying, well, Dad, don't you want to meet on this afterwards and talk a little bit? He said, no, if this is good for Atlanta, we're part of Atlanta and we're in.
What a great man.
And Truett was the best business guy I've ever met in my life. And when I say that, wholeheartedly about being not only a business guy, but a good person with a good heart, etc. He and Arthur Blank are two of the best people. When I say people, business leaders, good hearts, willing to give back to the community, etc. And that's, again, Frank, that's part of what makes Atlanta so great.
Sure does.
We've got corporate leaders that really run the city that are willing to give back and make Atlanta, a great city, like Arthur, who we've benefited from the stadium now.
Sure.
And Truett, who has been so good to us. So anyway, that's how we got started. And then in 2010, we wound up signing the 30-year lease. I had to start a company because I thought, Steve Hatchell and NFF was going to come up and run the hall. And he said, no, we're staying in Dallas. You got to run it too. So not only did we have to build it, we had to run it. So I became CEO and signed the 30-year license to have the College Football Hall of Fame move to Atlanta. So,
well, the work y'all done is fantastic. It is every year the number of people that you guys get. I know it just gets bigger and bigger. But for a college football enthusiast to go in to the different exhibits and see them and how they change and how they evolve. Again, this goes out to all of our listeners. If you have not been to Atlanta to the College Football Hall of Fame, you must come in. And what a great time to do it. Just put some orange on and come in and watch Syracuse and Tennessee. You'll blend right on in.
Yeah, and then
we're Virginia Tech and South Carolina the next day.
Yeah,
the Labor Day weekend, we got two good games and
back to back.
The Aflac kickoff games. But you're right. The Hall of Fame, when we went to build it, I basically said to the architect and designer that we needed to build an edutainmuseum, which wasn't a word, but I made it up, and it had to be educational, it had to be entertaining, and it had to be a museum. And so we traveled around the country from the Grammy Museum in LA to the Holocaust Museum in New York to the New Orleans to the World War II Museum.
Yeah.
And, did our research. We went to 11 other museums, et cetera, and built something that I think you get two experiences. One is, in your case, Frank, you'll get an LSU experience because it personalizes you through your RFID chip, which is in your credential when you register.
Yep.
And it'll welcome you as Frank Duffy, LSU. And then secondly, you get an immersive college football experience as well. So, we're very proud of it, humbly, and good for us to get back to college football. That's what we do. We're trying to use college football for the greater good, and that's part of our mission. We're the most charitable bowl organization in the country and giving $65.8 million away over our career here.
And now that you brought it up, the personal experience, if you want to tone down those crimson colored pictures of Nick Saban, I'm all for that. Put a few more of those in purple.
I can imagine.
Gary, when I was coming in to Atlanta a couple of weeks ago for media days, coming in through Brookhaven off of Buford Highway, you see the new children's hospital. And our good friend, Frank and mine, Billy Roberts, told me what Bernie Marcus, golly, you think about the Home Depot people, Arthur Blank, and what they gave to that children's hospital. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And that's just Atlanta. I've got a niece that lives there with two daughters, and her husband has to commute to New York every week to work with Goldman Sachs, but they live in Atlanta. They've been there, 15 years, 16 years, a long time. It's kind of, you're right. Everybody there, if you go to Costco or the post office, you're going to see every school in the South represented well. And you go back to the Cathy family. Isn't the original Chick-fil-A in Hapeville down by the airport?
Yeah. Basically, I can't remember his name, but Truett's brother, and he started that. And it was basically just a grill to service the workers at Delta Airlines. And, unfortunately, Truett's brother died in a car crash, but they have a museum. You talk about museums down at Chick-fil-A, they have a museum, and they have the original menu and what the costs were. I think it was like $1 for eggs but it was basically a grill.
Yeah.
And
the door fives.
It serviced all the Delta workers. They'd come off working the night shift and they'd be looking for breakfast. It served breakfast and lunch. And Truett Truett never used to let them open more than 30 stores a year because Truett lived through the Depression.
Yeah.
And he hated debt. They never had debt when Truett was there.
Wow.
And now they're opening, gosh, I don't know how many, 100, 150 stores a year or whatever it is, and grown all over the country. But it's interesting. Dan Cathy told me a story that, they overlaid the Southeast region when they signed on in 1997 as title of the Peach Bowl. They only had stores from Virginia down to Texas.
Yeah.
And so they overlaid the ACC and SEC area. And Dan flew out to California to look at, opening California. And when he met with the real estate developer, when he handed him his card, said, Chick-fil-A. He says, oh, I know you guys. You guys have the bowl game in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, they didn't even know Chick-fil-A, but they knew the Peach Bowl.
Yeah.
But they didn't know Chick-fil-A. And you look at it now, and Chick-fil-A is nationwide and even international now. And as I often tell people, their food is great, but their people are better. They're great partners of ours.
Yeah. Gary, you said something. I was listening to you during SEC Media Days talking about the future of college football. And you talked about there are certain bowl games that are fine, but other ones that might be struggling. You offered a plan and a vision. You're not someone who is apt to go with solutionless problems. You find solutions. That's what you're so great at. Talk about the future of college football from your vantage point.
Yeah, I think in the bowl business, the six of us, the rose, sugar, orange, cotton, and fiesta and peach are fine. We're going to host quarters and semis and hopefully in the new contract as well. And once the commissioners decide what the format will be in 26 through 31. And then you have the 20 bowls that ESPN owns. And then in the middle, you have the great bowls like, the Music City Bowl, the Liberty Bowl, the Holiday Bowl, the Gator Bowl, etc. Pop Tarts and, the old Citrus Bowl. And, my belief as we move forward is probably they and football and the commissioners would be better suited to take those bowls and organize them together and let the commissioners pay those bowls an honorarium to put on their bowls every year.
Like that.
Smart move.
And the commissioners to take over the business side of it in that they can negotiate a better TV deal collectively together with the TV networks because of the strength they have of their conference. They have a lot more inventory and a lot more inventory that's meaningful all season long for the networks. So that would be my
That's smart.
suggestion to my bowl partners and the commissioners because we need those bowls to be successful, not only for their communities and what good they do in their communities from an economic impact standpoint and from a community give back standpoint, but also for the players and the teams that play in those for the memorable experiences they create.
Definitely.
Gary, I have to ask you, when you rattled off those 6 bowl games, you did it matter of factly, but I think we need to go back a little ways and find out how you cracked that Mount Rushmore of the big bowl games. I mean, that was incredible when you guys came on the scene and said, we're going to be a major player in these bowl games and got into that major rotation. Can you speak to that? Because I still think that's one of the greatest coups. Back in our days when we were growing up, it was rose, sugar, orange, and cotton, and that was it. And man, you guys, y'all didn't, like Bum Phillips used to say, you didn't knock on the door, you kicked that damn thing in. Can you speak to that? Because I think
I
that's
appreciate that.
fascinating.
It's interesting. People don't realize how long it takes to build relationships, and spending extra nights out, doing little things. And that's basically what we did and I did. I mean, I just, I had to go when I came in 1998, which at the time we were very much a volunteer organization. And I said, you can't get to where I want to get to and where we need to get to if you're led by volunteers. We need to hire a full-time staff. And so I went out and did that. And then, things like taking a shot, you mentioned Nick Saban at LSU. I mean, at the time, Nick was in his second year at LSU, and he called me. It's the only time I've gotten a call from a head coach to be in our bowl game, believe it or not. And he said, we've got to get to the Peach Bowl. We're trying to grow a team down here, and the Peach Bowl will be the best bowl we can get to in 98 or 2000. I'm sorry.
2000,
Nick
yeah.
was in his second year, maybe.
Actually, his
You
first.
correct me, Frank. First year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was in my second year in the bowl business as president and CEO, and my job was to pick the teams. And I selected Georgia Tech, who was like 14th, I think, with George O'Leary. And
Yeah.
I went to my board and I said, we're going to take LSU, and they said, no, we're not. LSU was here in '96. They got beat by Clemson. Jerry Denard did a terrible job promoting the game. They didn't sell any tickets. We don't want LSU back. I said, well, I met with the president, who was Mark Emmert at the time, the chancellor.
That's right.
I met with Charlie Weems, who was chairman of the board, and I met with Nick Saban. And they said that they'll do anything we need them to do. And so I came back, told my board, and they said, we don't want them. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll put my job on the line. We'll take LSU, and if they don't do what they told me they were going to do, you can fire me. And I remember LSU sold 16,421 tickets.
I had both my guest rooms filled.
Is that right?
Oh yeah.
And there was a
Coming up.
Mr. Gill down there that owned a factory, and he bought 1,000 tickets and bought yellow T-shirts and gave them to all his workers and said, "You get your ass up to Atlanta and support the Tigers." And they came up. They beat Georgia Tech. Rohan Davey came in the second half,
Sure
spelling
did.
Josh Booty, and he hit Josh Reed in the back of the end zone. And they won 28-14. And as we customarily do in 27 years that I've been doing this, we go back on campus and meet with the head coach, players, equipment manager, president, CEO, or ADs, and do an analysis of just in continual improvement, how we can get better.
Yeah.
And I remember Nick telling me, he says, "Gary, every player that we were recruiting that year that played in the Under Armour All-American game in Houston signed with us." And that was Marcus Spears and that whole
Marquise
group.
Hill. Yeah. Great
That was
people.
that whole group. And they went on to win the 2003 national championship.
Sure
team.
did. Sure did.
And so fast forward, Nick, in 2007, when he went to Alabama, after his first year, he was 7-6. And we had just made a bid for the BCS because they were going to start a championship game and wanted to bring on a fifth bowl game from the Rose, Sugar, Fiesta, and Orange. And we lost the bid because the Sugar Bowl, Paul Houlihan, who was a good friend, has passed away.
Yeah.
Convinced the commissioners to let the Bulls host their bowl game and then 2 weeks later rotate the national championship game. And that was in 2006. In 2007, the NCAA legislated a 12th game to the schedules. And so I went to my board and I said, "Look, if they're not, the BCS isn't going to let us in the backside, we're going to start the BCS on the front side." And so I went to Clemson, Terry Don Phillips, the AD, who was a good friend, Tommy Bowden, who was a good friend, and they were going to have Spiller and that team who was top 10.
Yeah.
And then I called Nick and I said, "Nick, I know you're in your second year. I'd love to have you come over and play in this." And he said, "Gary, you helped me create the LSU start of our run at LSU. And, relationship wise, I'll come over and play in this game." And they came over, won 34-10. And Nick would tell you that was the start of Alabama's run from that Chick-fil-A kickoff game.
Yeah, that game in 2008 when they came to Atlanta, we were talking about yesterday. They also went on the road to Athens. Remember, Georgia had the blackout, and Alabama was up 31-0 at the half. Ended up being closer in the end. Frank and Brendan, y'all hear what he's saying? How relationships. And Tony Barnhart was on with us yesterday. I know you know Tony, Mr. College Football.
Oh, yeah.
He talked all about relationships. And Brendan's dad, Buddy Martin, they had a ceremony to honor Tony down at Spurrier's Bar and Grill, the restaurant down in Gainesville Saturday. And Tony always talks about relationships. And you don't look like you're slowing down. You got another 20, 30 years in you before you think about it.
Yeah.
You got to. But Frank, I did not know how close and precipitous that line was. And you got Nick Saban to come to Atlanta. And I know, Frank, when he came and spoke to the LSU alumni group, he said, "Y'all want to win big?" What'd he say?
I remember that like it was yesterday. One of the very first alumni groups that he visited, no LSU coach had ever come to Atlanta to our alumni group. And we headed over at Sweetwater Brewery, and he walks in and immediately, like Gary said, this was not Donato anymore. You knew there was a new sheriff in town. When he comes in, he goes, "Everybody wants to win, right? Hey, go Tigers, go Tigers." Great. Get your checkbooks out because our workout facilities are third world. Our administration building looks like it's about to fall down. You guys want to play in the big leagues? You got to come up with the cash. And I'm telling you, from day one, Gary, it was a totally different thing. The GOAT, the greatest of all time, was stenciled on this guy from the very first minute we walked in. And I do have to tell you, that first Peach Bowl, that Chick-fil-A Bowl, was my son's very first LSU game. He's now 26. And I literally, if I turned this a screen around, I could show you my picture of him holding him up with the Chick-fil-A cows when he's 2 years old
That's
down
great.
in Atlanta for that bowl game. A
That's
great
cool.
memory.
Thank you for that memory.
It's
That's
awesome.
what bowl games are all about, creating memories. And it's in our mission to create memories and give back in charity. We were founded in 1968 as the ninth oldest bowl game, but
Damn.
the first game founded for charity. And we've kept that as part of our mission to create memories and give back money. So thanks for that, Frank.
Yes,
That's a
sir.
great story.
Gary, I cut my teeth in broadcasting in Denver, Colorado.
Great market.
Yeah. And I was there. That's sort of my point here. I was there when I helped lay cable in the Pepsi Center. So we call it the Pepsi
Wow.
can.
Wow.
So I opened, I was a young, buck trying to make my way in TV, but I watched how, on the professional lens, I watched how things like TNT came in and changed it. What the All-Star game came into Denver, and these different events that would come into Denver. But as these events would come in, they would be a little bit different. That's where we saw the emergence of halftime shows and a lot more of these things in the professional realm. That we watched Denver almost like Atlanta in a lot of ways, sort of mimic. Building a facility, building a sports park, because then across the way you have Mile High right there, where obviously the Broncos play. So there's a sports complex right down there in downtown Denver-ish. Do you feel like that's relatable in some sense of what has gone for college football and what you've done for the town of Atlanta? Because it just always felt like when I would go there, that I was like, man, I feel like I'm in a sort of a Denver environment. Is that just weird to say, or?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I ran the Atlanta Sports Council, Denver, I'm trying to think of the guy's name up there, but he was a good friend, and he had talked about, we sat and he talked about, how'd you do it in Atlanta and what did you do? And because Denver, became the new fresh market, right? They started to get facilities, they had great ownership. I pay Billy Payne a lot of credit, he and Andy Young, in Atlanta, the 96 Olympics really set us up for success. They broke through the barrier by putting government and corporate and the community and communities together with the facilities, and everybody got on the same page.
Yeah.
And people didn't think we could put on the Olympic Games. And as a matter of fact, in 1990, when we won the rights to the games, when they announced Atlanta, a lot of people around the world thought Atlantic City had won the rights because Atlanta was not known as an international city at that
That's
time.
right.
And
Wow.
Billy and Andy, by putting all those groups together, really, and then executing, obviously you got to execute, but they put the plan together and executed, and that gave everybody a baseline of, hey, we can do this. And coming out of that in 96, Atlanta Sports Council, I said, we're going to become the sports capital of the world, because Bob Costas had termed a phrase, because we had just won the Super Bowl rights for 2000. And he said, man, with the Olympics, the Super Bowl, Atlanta's becoming the sports capital of the world. And I used that, and we went after NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball All-Star games. We had all those in 2000, 2001. We got the men's Final Four, the women's Final Four, the Super Bowl. And so we started attracting all these events because we used that energy from the Olympic Games, and all the support that the tidal wave caused from that, to make Atlanta the sports capital of the world. And a lot of cities like Denver, have followed that by building facilities, and going after these big time events and bringing them to their city.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Gary, but I just wanted to say, like, what was different to me, as I've been to a million conferences, like we all have, right? And I'm switching to SEC Media Days more, like as an angle here, but like, it just seemed like, and I think are you talking about Robert Calhoun, by the way, or Matthew Payne in Denver, the people that run the sports complex down there?
No, it wasn't those two names. It'll come to me. But yeah, their sports
there was
council was
with
created.
Stan Kroenke and the whole Kroenke group down there
Yeah,
too.
Kroenke was like blank. If they don't
Yeah.
have Kroenke in Denver,
Nothing. Yeah,
that
it was
stuff doesn't
huge.
get done.
Yeah. He signed my paychecks for many years. But I was just I was curious as to, the after hour events, having events to attract like superstars and celebrities and, things like that are more of a, kind of a cool thing to do. It became so cool to go to the All-Star game that you had to go, right? I feel like Media Days is getting like, almost like its own event in that sense, almost like a, like draft day or all these kinds of things. Is that thought about? Are those conversations that you have?
Yeah, it's a great point, Brennan. I think the SEC's, looking at potentially making money off media days. I mean, you guys know as
Good.
media, you got to pay for certain spaces there.
Yeah.
I know that we supported with Mercedes-Benz. We were partners in putting on an event Tuesday night at Stats. And then, yeah, you look at NFL Draft Day. I mean, it's just incredible what that has become. So I think energizing communities, energizing fans. Obviously, we talk about relationships. I think everything starts with the relationships.
Yes.
Rob Browne, is a relationship that came out of
Tommy
Pete
Tuberville.
Cordelli,
And Tommy
who-
Tuberville told me about you.
and Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah.
So relationships beget relationships. And as I just met with my interns, we just brought in 5 interns. We do every year.
Yeah.
And they just started, and I met with them and I said, look, it's easier to create relationships and keep those relationships long lasting and do business with them than it is to go create new relationships and new business opportunities. So build relationships with people that you want to do business with a long time and long term, like the Nick Saban statement and conversation we just had, because and this goes to business as well. In business, it's easier to keep a customer than it is to go find a new
Yes,
customer.
sir.
Oh, yes.
Frank can tell you that from what you
Yep.
guys do.
I promise you.
And if you spend the time and the effort and the money and the build that relationship, you can do business for a long time. And the second thing I told my interns, you got to build the relationships, but pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. You never want to be the hog in a business deal. You
Yep.
always want to leave that person across the table feeling good about the deal, that they got a fair and an equal deal to you, even if you got to leave something on the table for them to win. Because if you do, you'll do business with them long term. If you don't and try and hog the deal, hogs get killed before the pigs.
That's right.
And you'll never do business with that person again. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Leave them happy.
Well, that's so
exactly.
true. That's the stock market term. Bull markets are born on pessimism and they die on euphoria and stupidity. Trees don't grow to the sky. I mean, by the way, I'm getting real-time data. My son has got to go out to Jackson Hole next week, and a friend of his is out there, was on his morning run this morning. And Brendan can relate to this, having lived in Colorado. There was a mountain lion on the trail and decided,
Man.
you're not coming this way. I'm looking I just sent y'all the video. It's
Wow.
more that wasn't recorded. But I remember, by the way, we had Coach Tuberville on the phone one time in the summer of 20. Before
By the way,
he became
that's
a
not
senator.
normal, Rob. I lived in Colorado 37 years. I never saw no mountain lion running down the street. And your son's friend needs to stop where he's running on his trail, son.
Yeah.
Don't run from mountain lions,
Yeah.
okay? Just
No,
so you know.
He's in Jackson. They're in Jackson Hole, Jackson, Wyoming. But Tuberville, Coach Tuberville, in the summer of 20, my son was living out there during the virus. They lived out there and worked for the summer in Jackson Hole. And I remember he texted me, said, Dad, there's a bear that's following us. And Coach Tuberville said, just tell him he's just got to be the fastest guy, faster than the other guy. That's the key.
That's right.
You don't have to beat him, just beat the other guy.
Just
By
beat
the
the other guy.
way, the only cougars you have to worry about up here in the North Georgia mountains, a big canoe, are the ones that are in the bar at the junkie club. That's the one you got to really watch out.
You're correct, sir. Gary, Brendan helped build the trucks and stuff like that, and was streaming back in 2008.
Well,
with his
Gary
dad
would
Buddy.
know a little bit about
Yeah.
this, but
Yeah.
and we won't
It's
get
cool.
into it. But
Yeah.
when Wild World of Sports had all these TV trucks, they weren't working after a while. They had a compound of television trucks that sat there collecting dust, and they said, we can't afford to do this any longer. and they
Wow.
started to sell off these trucks. Well, Gary, all about this TV. I won't bore everybody, but ABC, CBS, all that, they don't pull their own trucks in. That's a third-party vendor that
That's
those
right.
trucks work year round. And so there's a place called Mountain Mobile Television, MMT, and Lone Star TV out of Texas. I worked on those trucks, cutting my teeth, literally like popping in pop riveting belly bays, and sweeping up shop, and running to the store and all that stuff. But the evolution of technology here, Gary, I know plays a big role in giving you guys some leeway, or some opportunities to broadcast in different places and feature some of that. How much is the streaming part of this? How much of the change of how people ingest their media matters going forward? Because now we got AI and all this stuff, and things changing every day.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, the impact of AI, which I don't think anybody, even the people that know AI, can tell you what the ramifications are going to be. But I just had a meeting 2 days ago with my staff about, okay, how can we take social media and start to commercialize it in a way that we can start making some money off of social media, right? I mean, we make a little bit off of that, but you're always looking at different revenue streams, and social media becomes one. We have a facial recognition now technology at Mercedes-Benz Stadium that will move people through the lines quicker.
Yeah.
So we're getting a sponsor for that. So yeah, you're using the technologies not only to improve the consumer and customer entertainment and experience, but you're trying to monetize it as well. And so that's the challenge going forward. I think that's the biggest opportunity: mobile ticketing rather than hard ticketing. The different technologies that will come to bear, and AI is going to be just, gosh, I can't even imagine, just a year from now, what the implications of AI are going to be.
Exponential.
Yeah. Well, and we see some of that, and when we went to SEC Media Days, not this year when it was in Dallas, but you see it's like some of the ways that AI is starting to come into play here, even for the person going in, or the fan going in wanting to know information, right? Having some sort of AI there to talk to you about the history of things, and it's pretty fascinating when you go down that rabbit hole. I got to think you guys are thinking about that, or you all are thinking that way all the time. Is like, how do we bring this into the fold, and kind of keep up with what's going on, but not to go too far, because the history of college football is some of the great, one of the reasons we love it so much, right?
Yeah.
That's a great point. It's going to be the interesting balance as to how you take AI and make it work for you, but don't let it overtake some of the traditions, et cetera. I know the College Football Hall of Fame, obviously I'm not involved day to day anymore, but they just did a deal with a company in AI where now when you go to the College Football Hall of Fame, you can actually be in the play.
Yeah.
I've
seen some of that.
AI has
it's
become
so cool.
huge experiential in the College Football Hall of Fame case, and will be in other technologies and other experiences as well.
So what you're telling me is I could be a virtual pulling guard, because I don't think I'm going to be running a rock.
That's right.
You're going to do a crackback block on Brian Bosworth.
You can be the H-back.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary, I see Maury Gaston asking, how much time should I allow to do the College Football Hall of Fame properly? All day or half day? What is weekly closing time? Now, consider Maury is a great friend of mine, like an older brother. He's a mechanical engineer. I'm giving him 2 days in there. What do you think?
Definitely.
Yeah, you can definitely spend all day in there, because not only, most people think, well, I'm going to walk through it and I can do it in an hour or whatever. I mean, there's a film in there. I still remember doing the film where, I took the filmmakers at the Notre Dame USC game at Notre Dame and had them put the camera at the 50-yard line of Notre Dame Stadium, and got USC and Notre Dame running out, because I wanted people to feel what it's like as a player as they run out of the tunnel
Gosh, that's
onto
so
the
true.
field, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
And so, you got to go see the film. The film's going to take, 5-10 minutes. And then each of the exhibits, depending on how much time you want to spend with it, whether it's AI or you want to really get involved in it, from doing vertical jump to, and there are some, you know, museum aspects to it, looking at the helmets, from starting with, the nose guard that they used to put on people.
The horn.
And that's the only thing they did because they were breaking their noses because there were no helmets.
Yeah.
To, the old leather helmet, to now what they use. So that they're museum parts, but there's also experiential parts that if you really want to get involved in it, you can definitely spend a full day in there.
And
Well,
you can
that's
mine, and you can mine down on your favorite players too. I mean, there are
That's exactly right.
many different sections about a particular player that's in the Hall of Fame, like a Charles Alexander, somebody that you might not have known a lot of, but that's a fascinating character. They've done a great job of not only building out their bios, but their records, action shots of them. I mean, that's the beauty of having those big computerized,
Yeah.
touch screens they have. Murray, you would take 2 days, I promise you. You would love every minute of it.
Yeah.
I'll
And
tell you a great story
yeah.
about the screens that we use for the Hall of Famers up on the third level. When we went through all those Hall of Fames and museums that I talked about with the architect and designer, I told him, I said, I want to use holograms. So I want Herschel Walker to walk up, for you to hit Herschel Walker to walk up and welcome you. And then you see his 5 best plays, and you see, other running backs, etc. And they said, well, Gary, the holograms don't exist back, in 2009 and 10, whatever. Now they do, but so we went with the big screens. And you're right, you can hit, Herschel Walker and see Herschel's 5 best plays. You can hit another button and see all the Georgia people in the Hall of Fame. You can hit another part of the screen and you can see all the running backs in the Hall of Fame. So it's a very interactive experience. So yeah, depending on how much time you want to spend in the hall, you could be there forever.
Well, you start off.
By the way,
that.
Gary, this was we blew past the fact that you got Herschel Walker to be an Adidas guy. That was
great.
massive. That move right there, I remember as a kid. Pretty awesome. I just found some of this stuff. The old ad was really cool, man.
Gary, did you ever have a chance to meet Adi Dassler or Horst Puma? I saw a guy. It's cool.
Horst Dassler was Adi Dassler's son. I never met Adi Dassler, who founded Adidas. He was an old shoe cobbler, and the 3 stripes that he put on the shoes actually were stripes that went pieces of leather that went all the way around underneath the shoe and up the side of the shoe, and they were used to hold your forefoot or your midfoot, your arch, in place.
God.
So they weren't, stripes just for decoration like the Nike swoosh is. They were actually part of the shoe to, be effectively, holding your foot in. And
I didn't know
so Adi started, his name was Adolf Dassler. He started Adidas. And when it came time to name the shoe, they said, well, we ought to call it after the old man. And his nickname was Adi. And so they called it Adi, and they took the first 3 letters of his last name, Dassler, Dassler, and they called it Adidas. And so all over the world, it's known as Adidas, and we call it Adidas.
Yeah.
There you go.
Having said that, I met Horst Dassler, and when he came in for the Super Show in Atlanta, I don't know if you guys are old enough, but in February, there used to be a show convention come to Atlanta, and it was all the shoe manufacturers, and huge. I mean, Adidas used to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars having, this huge store basically that showed all their product, and the buyers used to come in from Athlete's Foot and Foot Locker and all over the country, all the little guys, and they used to put their orders in for shoes. And I remember Horst Dassler coming to Adidas. I picked him and his wife up at the airport and brought him to the Super Show. And about 6 months later, unbeknownst to anybody, Horst, who was running Adidas at the time, Adi and Kath, the mother and dad had died. Horst had eye cancer and died at 51 years old. And Adidas went right in the tank, went into bankruptcy. The Bank of Paris wound up owning Adidas for a while. And then John Louis Dreyfus, who was the biggest grain dealer in the world and the uncle of Julia Dreyfus from Seinfeld, he bought Adidas out of bankruptcy, and he hired Sonny Vaccaro, Rob Strausser, and Peter Moore, who Peter made the Air Jordan shoe at Nike. Sonny signed Michael, and Rob, was CMO. And they had got fired from Nike. Dreyfus hires those three, and Sonny Vaccaro, who's from Pittsburgh, and I'm from Pittsburgh. Sonny knows me. Sonny told John Louis Dreyfus he needs to hire me to be the global business unit manager for Adidas. And so I fly to New York, and I met with John Louis, and I said, John, do you have money to win, and do you want to win? And he said, yes and yes. And I said, okay, I'll take the job. Sonny signed Kobe Bryant, and I did Kobe Bryant's first shoe at Adidas, his first TV spot, his first global marketing campaign. I was in charge of that because I had guys in Japan, Italy, France, Germany, Spain, all over the world were my business unit managers in that country for Adidas. And I was the global manager of all that. So that was a lot of fun.
Well, you guys hit heavy in the soccer markets, and is that where the emergence?
Yeah, all over the world, Adidas was number one, and Rob probably knows this story. And I don't want to bore you with stories, but I can tell you stories for hours. But when I left NC State coaching after 3 years, I went to work for Adidas the first time in 1980, and Michael Jordan and Buzz Peterson, who were roommates in North Carolina, loved Adidas. And so I started giving those guys Adidas. They'd wear them around campus. And Dean Smith was getting $250,000 from Converse, so he wouldn't let him wear them in the games. But when Michael went to turn pro, I'm sure you guys watched the Air Jordan movie, which is full of crap, because Sonny Vaccaro was the consultant. And so he made himself look great. He never went to the Jordan house. He never, we never had Michael and his family in Germany. There's a lot of the show that's made up, obviously. But when Michael went to turn pro, I gave him the first $100 pair of shoes. They were called the Forum. They had a Velcro strap to them. They were high top. I gave them to Michael, and I said, here, wear these up at the Olympic trials, because they were going to Bloomington to play for the USA Olympic team, which is coached by Bobby Knight. And so there's shoes of Michael dunking and playing in Adidas. And after they came out of the Olympics, Michael didn't want to, go to Nike. And David Falk, his agent, worked on Miss Jordan to get Michael to go to Beaverton to meet with Nike. And so he acquiesced, went out there with his dad and David Falk. And there's a book called Swoosh that in the book, it says that Michael came out of the meeting with Nike, and Michael's dad said, well, we got to sign with Nike. This is an unbelievable deal. And David Falk said, yeah, this as good a deal as we're going to get, we got to sign with Nike. And Michael's quoted in the book, no, I want to sign with Adidas. And so Michael was 23, I guess, at the time. I was like 28 and living in Raleigh. He lived in Chapel Hill, obviously. And he called me, he always called me Mr. Stokan. He called me and said, Mr. Stokan, can you meet? And I said, sure, Michael, we'll meet. So we met on Franklin Street in Chapel Hill. There's a stone wall across from Four Corners Restaurant. And we sat on that stone wall and drinking a Coca-Cola. And he said, Mr. Stokan, I love you. You've been great to me. You've been great to my family. And that's why I want to sign with Adidas. And I love your shoes. If you can just get close on the car, the shoe deal, the annuity, the clothing program, I'll sign with Adidas. You don't have to beat Nike. I want to sign with Adidas. And at the time, there's another book, Phil Knight's book, called Shoe Dogs, that Phil Knight says in the book. They were bordering on bankruptcy in 1983, 84. They were in the red big time because he couldn't find a bank to fund Nike. And so I sent a 3-page marketing campaign over to Herzegovina, West Germany, because the wall was still up in Germany. And Adidas was headquartered in Herzegovina, Germany. And they came back to me and said, we don't have that kind of money to put in the U.S. market. It was $2.5 million. And we don't sign Michael. He signs with Nike, sells $126 million of Air Jordan products his rookie year with the Bulls. And that puts Nike in the black. And now his own brand is worth $7 billion. And so I took my family to the Atlantis for vacation, and we were going to the restaurant down at the Atlantis casino. So we're walking through the casino, and over on the left-hand side, there's a cigar shop and a jewelry shop and a clothing shop. And my daughters, who were like 10 and 7 at the time, my 10-year-old says, there's Michael Jordan over there, outside the cigar shop. I said, yeah, it is. Come on, we'll walk over. Well, Michael had run his golf tournament down there in the Bahamas every year. And he had Charles Oakley, Charles Barkley, and Ahmad Rashad with him. And so I walk over, and he sees me, and he smiles, and he says, gee, come here. He puts me in a headlock. And he looked at my daughter and my daughters, and he said, your dad is the hardest working white man in sports. My daughters have never forgot that. And then he went on to tell the story that I just told you. But he said, he put his own ending on it. He said, yeah, Gary didn't think I could play, and that's why Adidas never signed me. So he stuck a dagger right in my heart.
Oh, no.
Which Michael loves to do.
Gary, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I got to tell you, you always are welcome here. We need to have a virtual Permane Brothers sandwich on this show for you one time from the warehouse.
I want to apply for an internship. I want to be one of the interns.
I do too. Get to Atlanta. Gary, how do people follow you? And let's do this again. In football, that's your thing. But what a treat is all I can say. Thank you so much.
Well, Rob, I've always appreciated you and the job you've done. Tommy Tuberville said, this is a guy you gotta help out, Gary, because he does a good job. And
thank you.
From my friend Pete Cordelli as well, who we were both at NC State. So, Frank, great to meet you.
Great seeing you.
Brandon, great to meet you. Have a great football season, and come see us in Atlanta.
And Gary,
I'm gonna come see you.
Gary, if you need somebody to get that blue blazer and those gray slacks on and go up to East Lansing for that Michigan State Purdue game in November, nobody wants to go up in the cold, I'm your guy. Let me know.
All right.
And if you need someone to come, run your AI program in the future, you just give me a call. I'll come up.
There you go.
We'll do it. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Gary.
Bye-bye.
What a treat, man. Let me say, get out. Brad Bellamy had a kids event this weekend, school starting back. Get out to LandersFordMemphis.com. Poplar and Houston Levy open every day of the week, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. The Ford Broncos, the F-150s, man, the new Expeditions, they've got all kind of savings opportunities on there. Let them know you heard about it on Sidelines. Great people. Love Landers, what they're doing. And, man, lights out gummies. If you want to get a good night's sleep, Brendan, yours are on the way. Dave was on the coast. The tsunami didn't hit him Monday. They're on the way. These things work. I recommend them. They're the real deal. Man, Hewlett and Dunn. They got 28 boxes just of jeans came in the other day. It's coming in every day. And Rumble Boxing Gym. Love those people there. And our good friend Chris Aiken, Web-Footed Kennels in Jonesboro. We have great sponsors. We're so blessed. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We are working every day. Brendan, unbelievable. Frank, this was one of the coolest. There's something about Atlanta, and then you bring in Brendan, sees things we'd never seen. That story about Michael Jordan, holy cow, we are 28 days away from the start of college football season. That is, I think, 672 hours away from the start. If you track, and I am. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Good night, John Boy.
Hi, John Boy.
Stay gold, Johnny.